The new guidelines. If you have been a part of JBQ, you know that we have had guidelines for many years. Here is a copy for you. We have enough for every church for now, but they will be available on the website. The point of this session is to just highlight the changes. How many of you are absolutely brand new to JBQ, never done it before? We have a couple of people. Okay. You are not going to get the in-depth of all the rules in this session. We're just not going to have time to do that. What I'm going to highlight are some of the changes. There will be references made to the old guidelines and the differences. This is not meant to get you into all the rules. I would encourage you to read them. There is training available. I know it's online because I know there's a video of me online doing a JBQ officials test. Okay? It is available. That can be done, and I would encourage it. You'll hear in the later session. It is beneficial for coaches and even the kids to some degree to know the rules.
Yes.
The guidelines, excuse me. We are careful to call these guidelines. All right. Before I dive into the new guidelines, though, I want to dive. You actually hit a number of my points from my latter session. So they say repetition is a good teacher. You're going to hear a lot of the points that Mark made in my later session about advanced coaching strategies.
I learned it from you.
Sure. You probably more likely learned it from Dan, but Dan might have learned it from me. But I want to hit just one thing because you talked about it, but I'm going to back up and give the broader principle. Never forget what we're doing here. This is a Bible discipleship ministry designed for children, but for families. It is a Bible discipleship ministry for children, but for their families. And you kind of hit on that point. But here's the key thing that I wanted to hit here. Okay? This is information. It's good information. It's all biblical. It's rooted in the Word of God. It's information. Information does not bring about transformation. Information with revelation brings transformation. Now, here's the story. This just dovetails on your point. I'm just stepping back to the bigger principle. Okay? My children all did JBQ for 8 years. They started as 4-year-olds, went through 6th grade. All 4 of my kids. That was part of our family. That my wife and I made that conscious decision. Our kids are going to do this. Now, every one of them, by the time they were done, you talked about the SEAL program. All 4 of my kids ended their years in JBQ with the Master SEAL, which is not really the highest one, but it's kind of like if you get that one, you've gotten pretty good. It's pretty fun. They all ended with their Master SEAL. My daughter Heidi, who is now 33 years old, we're at a Chinese restaurant getting ready. We're ordering dinner, and she's sitting down, and she looks at the little placemat with the menu. And most Chinese restaurants will have the Chinese astrological signs along. You've seen that, right?
Yep.
Well, Heidi is 10 years old, maybe. I don't remember how old she was. And she said, Daddy, what is all this stuff? Okay. She has the information. Now watch the revelation. I looked at my daughter and I said, Heidi, what should? All right, I'm sorry. No, I have to rephrase it. Question for 20 points. What should? Now that's the key word. What should is the key word, if you're familiar with key words. Because I knew that she knew the key word. And she's looking at me like, well, Oh, he's asking a JBQ question. What should a Christian's attitude be towards spiritism, astrology, and other occult practices? And then she gave the answer. Christians should avoid all occult practices because Scripture specifically forbids. I said, Heidi, this is astrology. And I explained to her what the purpose of this. They are trying to read their future or their purpose or their destiny through the alignment of the stars and all this. And they are trying to find out what God has revealed in His Word. Oh. Information met with transformation, or met with revelation, brings about transformation. See, Heidi was in that stage where she's still learning. Pastor Dan said it. Discipleship starts in the teenage years. The point here is you put the fuel for the fire. This is fuel for fire. The Holy Spirit is the only one that can do the transformation. So what you're doing is you're putting in fuel for fire. Then when the kids go to kids' church, then when the kids go to kids' camp, then when the kids go to the adult service, please note the air quotes on that, the Holy Spirit quickens their heart. And all of a sudden, oh, I get it. This isn't even the rules, I'm sorry, but this is all your fault. I'm blaming you. Our kids, what we did with our kids, when they would go to the adult service, I said, now, your job during the service, give them a piece of paper, pen, pencil. I want you to write down every JBQ question that you hear the pastor when he preaches today. And the kids would, all through the service, wow, they're writing stuff down. And we'd go home and we'd find out, okay, now, how many questions did you hear? I have never, since I started doing this probably 20 or 25 years ago, I've never heard a sermon where one JBQ question was not referenced in some way, shape, fashion, form. Never. My kids learned critical thinking. Man, I don't have time. If you want to hear a good story between sessions about how my daughter actually went up after the service and corrected our pastor, I will tell you that story then. Okay? It's awesome. It really is. That's my other daughter, not Heidi. That's DJ. All right. JBQ Guidelines. These are guidelines for fun, uncomplicated quizzing. And if you've ever been in the JBQ match, and some of you know, some of you have been there, sometimes JBQ quiz matches can get complicated. Okay? The rules are to help make it fun and fair for everybody. Because at the end of the day, it's still a competition. Now, I freely admit, I am hyper-competitive. You do not want to play against me in Monopoly, because I will do everything within the rules, but I will play to win. I am the commissioner of our church fantasy football league, and I am itching to win. And my wife has won 2 of the last 3 years, and it drives me crazy because she beats me. But don't forget the bigger point. It is a Christian discipleship ministry, 2 children, 4 families. Don't ever forget the main point. So, as we're going through these rules, keep in mind, we're doing this with purpose. There's reason. Okay? Now, the competition draws people in. Draws a lot of kids in. It draws a lot of parents in. And some of these kids are pretty sharp. They know when there's been a rule violation. And you're back there sitting, what did the quizmasters, what? Get to know the rules. Get to know the guidelines. Okay? So, if you have the set there, and every church should have one set right now at least, okay, I'm going to highlight essentially the difference and a couple of really important things that are in the guidelines. We're going to start on page 6. Hopefully, they haven't renumbered all the pages. But in the middle of page 6, it says Team Privileges and Restrictions. Everybody see that page? There you go. Thanks. Okay? Everybody see that? Middle of page 6, Team Privileges and Restrictions. Everybody see it? I want you to look at rule number 6. Because this is something that has always been true, but it's never been spelled out this clearly, and I want to make sure you hear it today. Both teams have the option to replace active quizzers during a timeout. So if you want to have a substitute, which I personally agree with your philosophy, I keep my teams as small as I can. Except for, I do have one exception. If my teams are going to regionals and nationals and I have kids on a younger team that have worked hard, I'm going to say, look, if you want to come, you're not going to quiz much, but you're going to experience the fun and the travel. I'll bring you on the team. I'll get you in a match. I'm going to make sure you score at least one question right. But during the year, my teams are 3 or 4 kids. In the novice league, I might go 5 just because sometimes you can't be sure if they're just getting new. Some of the parents may not realize, hey, we rely on your kid. I might make a team of 5, and then I'd rotate that spot out. Okay? But you have to call a timeout to make a substitute, unless the head coach should announce that a new active quizzer has entered the match when the timeout is completed. Number 7, if a quizzer has quizzed out, struck out, or fouled out, the head coach may immediately replace that quizzer with an inactive eligible quizzer without using a timeout. So here, it's just real simple. if you have 5 kids on your team, 4 of them at the buzzer, and you want to substitute one of them at question number 10 halfway through the match, you can do that with a timeout. You have to call a timeout to make a substitution. And you only get 3 timeouts a match. Or you quiz out, well, now I get a free substitution. We're going to let you come in. Okay? So just make sure you understand it. It's spelled out more clearly. That's always been true. But it's spelled out more clearly in the guidelines. Okay. We're going to move on now. Page number 8. Page number 8. This falls under the category of it's actually been true, but they're spelling it out to make it a little simpler. Number 13 and number 14, almost halfway down the page. If the quizmaster fails to reread an interrupted question and proceeds to the next question, either team may call a point of order between the conclusion of that question and response and the calling of the next question. And you can see in here in the rules, question 5, 6, and 7 are the examples they're using. The question must then be reread. If it is not noticed prior to the calling of the second question following, which in this case would be number 7, it will not be reread at all. Question number 5, interrupted over here. Shirley interrupted it, got it wrong. I'm supposed to reread it for this team, and as the quizmaster, I forget to do it. That happens. And I go ahead and move to question number 6. Question number 6 for 10 points. The coach speaks up. Wait. And I've already gone through question 6. I thought you were supposed to reread the interrupted questions if they're. What you would say is point of order. You're supposed to. You're right. So now, even though I've done question 6, now I'm going to go back to question 5. And I'm going to reread question 5 for the team that should have been given the right to answer the question. But now, if I get through question number 6, if I get to question number 7 and nobody notices it, and then they come back, at question 10, somebody calls a timeout and says, "Hey, weren't you supposed to reread?" Sorry, too late.
At the beginning of question 7, it's over.
At the beginning of question number 7, it's over. Okay, so again, this has actually been true all along, but they spell it out a little more clearly here. Okay? Now, when an interrupted question has been initially ruled correct and is later ruled incorrect due to a coach's appeal, the following guidelines apply. The quizmaster will ask if there are any further appeals, coach's appeals on that question. Then, if following all coaches' appeals, the initial response is determined to be incorrect, the quizmaster will read a substitute question to the opposing team. Okay? Here's real life. Okay? Blah, 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 Charlie Brown's teacher. Okay? That all sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook. Okay? Here's what's happening. Joe? Is that your? Okay. Joe interrupts a question. Gets it correct. But you call a coach's appeal because you don't think he gave the essence of it correct. And you know what? Upon further review, I actually, as the quizmaster, I made a mistake. I thought he said it right, but my 2 judges actually agree with you, and they vote to overturn Joe, and now it's been ruled incorrect. Everybody following so far? Okay. In that situation, what the rule here is telling us, I'm now counting Joe incorrect. Well, if it was an interrupted question, and it's incorrect, I'm supposed to reread a substitute for the other team, right? But what the rules are telling us here is I'm now going to read a substitute question. We've sat here and talked about the question. You've given your reasons why you think he was given his answer and it wasn't in essence. We've essentially answered the whole question for the kids. So the point here is now we're counting you wrong. Sorry. You'll get another one. I promise. We're going to read a substitute question. Same point value. But we're going to read a substitute question only for this team because he was counted incorrect on an interrupted question. Now, just one point, and I know it's in the new rules as well. Just keep this in mind. It has to be the same value. If he interrupted a 20, got a 20 wrong, I have to read a 20 to this team. However, there is nothing in the rules that states he interrupted a quotation question. They might get a non-quotation. Or vice versa. He interrupted a non-quote, and they might get a quote. That's fine. That's just random. Luck of the draw. Unless you're an extreme Calvinist, and then that's different. But everybody understand? The whole point is I am going to read a substitute question if you're counted wrong. Even if I originally counted you right, and then it took a judge's ruling, a coach's appeal to get it overturned. Everybody follow that? Okay, good. Then we're moving on. The next page, there are actually a number of new and more clarifying points here in the rule book. Okay? The first one, near the very top of the page, number 5, we're talking about individual fouls. If you look at the bottom of page 8, individual quizzer fouls. Question number 5. Now I want you to listen carefully. An active quizzer improperly communicates. If 2 or more quizzers are communicating, each will be assessed a foul. What did you just hear?
Each of fouls.
2 quizzers can get a foul. This is the rule that I read to Dan this morning and said, Dan, I don't like this rule. I think this is an overkill. This is too much. 2 fouls on the same team when the 2 kids are talking, and you're calling a foul in each one. That is my opinion. Okay? This is the guidelines. Whether or not you like this rule, and I'll be quite honest with you, I think it's stupid and it's bad and it's wrong and satanic. I don't, however far you want to go with it. I don't like this. I don't think it's right. I don't think we should call a double foul on the team. But this is the rule. Now, please note, improperly communicates. What that means is kids at the table cannot communicate verbally or non-verbally. And here's where it happens all the time. Okay? I'm sorry, that's incorrect for -10. I'm going to reread the substitute question for the other team. And you're going to look over here and you're going to say, they're mouthing it, they're pointing to that is improper communication. You are not to communicate at the table, verbally or non-verbally. Okay? Now, in that situation, now, as the quizmaster, according to this rule, I'm bound to call fouls on both of you. Because you might go try. I got to call 2 fouls.
Or 3. What if there's 4 people on the team?
Well, if they're all communicating, I suppose. Because it says if 2 or more quizzers are communicating, each will be assessed a foul. I'm sorry. Now, has this been brought to the attention of the people that went through? I have already done it, but if you speak up and write letters and communicate, it will add that much more weight where we can, because you asked before about revisions, this one will probably be revised next summer, not now. This rule is in effect for this year. I hate this rule. Words cannot express how bad I think it is. Doesn't matter. I do quiz mastering in North Carolina. I will enforce this rule.
And if you can do that on the tablets with the scorekeeping, give them both without an issue?
Apparently, now, I am not the scorekeeping guru.
I'm not either.
They have one of the sessions today at 1 o'clock, easy scorekeeping, and I plan on attending because I want to sharpen my skills because I really don't know the scorekeeping program very well. I personally am going to that one because I'm not teaching a session then, so I get to sit in and learn one of my weaknesses. All right. So, don't like it? Don't care. Got to go with it. Number 7. The quizmaster and judges determined by a majority vote that an unchristlike or unsportsmanlike attitude was expressed by an active quizzer. That's pretty broad. It's pretty vague. But if you see something as a quizmaster or a judge, remember, judges can call fouls too. If you see something that is unchristlike or unsportsmanlike, you have, within the range of your job description, the right to call a foul, which is a -5 points. Now, extreme examples. Quizzer gets correct answer. The other quizzer that you know she was trying to buzz in, and you get the answer right, and then you turn to her, gotcha! Now, that might work in the NFL with the NFL players jawing back and forth and trash talking, but that's not what we're trying to develop with the kids here. I kind of like this, but this falls on you as coaches. This falls on you as quiz coordinators in your church. Train up a child in the way they should go, even when they're quizzing at a quiz table. That falls on you. And if you see a kid that has that natural, aggressive, outgoing person, and they want to get in your face, that's where you got to say, hey, I understand what you're doing. Go videotape yourself and watch yourself later on. Don't do it in the quiz room. Okay? Don't do it in the quiz room.
Okay, I got a question on that.
Go right ahead.
Because that is under individual quizzer files, and it's also under team files.
Yes, it is.
So which one, I mean, if she stood up and said, hey, gotcha, you're going to quiz.
But that's an individual. A team foul would be where there's a group, or even a coach. If a coach, and if you don't think coaches don't get competitive, you haven't seen the people I've seen. Okay, so a coach could do that because even in the rule here under team fouls, it specifically says was expressed by a coach or inactive quizzer, one of the kids that's on the bench.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. We coaches can get intense. Okay. I will just a quick example. Okay. This would have been called a foul because I coached my 3 oldest kids in the year 2000. This was a family thing. We had been looking forward to it for years. So my kids were 6th grade, 4th grade, and 3rd grade, and I coached them the whole year. And the question came up, the original way the question was worded. When Adam and Eve sinned, how did God provide them clothing? Now, the answer originally, if you haven't been in JBQ for 20 plus years, you wouldn't know this. God killed the animals and made skins out of made clothing out of the skins. That was the original answer. But if you read your Bible, the Bible doesn't say anything about God killing the animals. And I have a problem with that. So I told my kids, you will not say that. Well, the quizmaster counted my child right. The coach of the other team called an appeal. And the judges, they voted. And my Bible says, and I proceeded to preach for 30 seconds, maybe even 29. And they overruled it and finally gave it back to my daughter. I went back to the coach, all of the officials, and apologized because my attitude was wrong. My information was correct, but my attitude was wrong. But then I taught my kids. God used the skin of animals, and the fact pack says that God killed the animals. That's what I taught my kids to start. Because the Bible does not... And when we brought that up in the National JBQ Committee, like 2 years later when we revised it, I brought it up. All the other coordinators in the room started laughing at me, except we had one of the theologians from the Assemblies of God in the room, because he was making sure we stayed on good biblical... And he said, whoa, wait a minute. And he's flipping through his Bible, and he's right. We got to take that out. Vindication! But I didn't do that because that would have been a 5-point foul.
I was really quick. When they get it right now, that kind. But when they're like, yes, out loud like that, how about, you're not doing it to a person, but they're just doing it to themselves?
That is a gray area. That is a gray area. Actually, a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I should have. Personally, I would not call that a foul. I would not call that a foul. Now, if they're over the top, well, they get up and start dancing on the table, or something crazy like that, or they get up and they run around the table. Okay, now you're getting a little egregious. But if they just, I'm not going to call a foul. Some people might, using this rule. That there's some broad principle there.
Quizmasters can warn them.
Quizmasters have the capacity, and like at the beginning of the year, if a kid begins to answer before being recognized, I almost always will say, now I want you to understand, I'm going to give you a warning today. But next month it's going to be a foul. Or if you do it again today, I'm going to call a foul on you. I will for things like that, I will give them a warning. Because even if they're in the experienced league, and I know here in Florida, your designations are a little different, I don't care. Some of the kids in there still are, I'm a little bit generous like that. I am not strict letter of the law. Because I have the power to give a warning. And I try to give a warning on things that are kind of gray areas where I probably should call a foul, but you know what? I'm going to give you a warning this time. What you're describing, if it's low-key, like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to say a word. That's my opinion. If you're a quizmaster, you have a different opinion, you're standing on this rule. If I'm the quiz coordinator, I'm going to back you 100%. But then I'll take you out behind signs and say, hey, think about this, though. Let's not be overly, because we're not here to count the kids wrong. We're not here to get perfect little robots. The kid got a question, a big important question, and they're expressing a little bit of emotion. It's okay. Opinion. All right, moving on. Couple of new ones. Number 4, team fouls. A coach's appeal is obviously used solely as a timeout. Now, I will admit, as a coach, because it wasn't a rule. I did this. But it wasn't a rule back then. Now it's a rule. I won't do it anymore. Now, I probably won't be coaching anymore. Unless my grandkids all get together, then I'd come back out of retirement. But a coach's appeal is meant to decide if you think that the independent decision of the quizmaster or the judge's decision group is not correct. Either, they made the wrong decision, and you want to make an appeal based on the rules to have them overturn their original decision. That's what a coach's appeal is for. But some coaches would take that and they'd start talking to their team. They don't really want to call an appeal. They just want the timeout, and they're out of timeouts. You can't do that. It's in the rule book. Now, another one, very similar. A point of order is used to request the judges reverse a ruling on any response. What are they supposed to call?
Coaches.
It used to be called judge. We haven't got to that part of the rule book, but now it's being called the coach's appeal. If you want to request the judges to overturn or reverse a ruling on a response, that is not a point of order. A point of order is the light's still on from the previous question. A point of order is, hey, that quizzer should have been called out because that's their 6th question correct, and you didn't call that quizzer. That's a point of order. A point of order is, wait a minute, I thought we were only supposed to have 3 30-point questions in a match. That was the 4th one. Oh, wow, you're right. That's a point. A point of order is designed to prevent a rules violation. That's all it is.
Is this saying, though, is this a terminology foul? Or, I mean...
Why don't you hold on to it, because I know where you're going. I'm actually going to address that right now.
Because there's so many new people, and I've seen them struggle. It's like, Judge, wait, point.
What am I trying to really... As a quizmaster, especially in the early part of the year, the kids are learning, coaches are learning too.
Right.
And they're learning, especially now when we have new terminology, which I'm going to cover that a little bit when we get to this part of the rules. We got new terminology. Okay, so Mark, you're going to call, I'd like to call for a judge's ruling. I'm going to look at you and say, do you mean a coach's appeal?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I mean a coach's appeal. I'm not going to call a foul on that at the beginning of the year because we're getting used to it. I'm going to give you some grace, but I'm going to teach you that what you're asking for is a coach's appeal, not a point of order. Now, if it comes to state finals, and I've been teaching the coaches all year long, and you call for a point of order, and then you try to give me the rules why I should change the answer, I'm going to say, first of all, that's a 5-point foul. Secondly, would you like to make a coach's appeal now?
Of course, right.
Everybody get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask you a question about number 4, back to coach's appeal?
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of problems with that statement, because when they put the word obviously in there, so you're subjective to the quizmaster, whatever's obvious. But in a coach's appeal, if I remember right, the only ones that can talk are the coaches and the assistants. The kids can't.
You haven't read the new rules yet, have you?
Okay.
See,
I
I expect you to be thinking ahead because I know some of your background. You are thinking ahead, but you don't know that there's a rule that now addresses that.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah,
right,
we're going to get to that. See, that's why I like having people like him in here. Okay, this is good. This is good. All right, so... And then number 6 is the same thing as number 7 under the individual fouls. The quizmaster and judges determined by majority vote that an unchristlike or unsportsmanlike attitude was expressed by a coach or an inactive quizzer. Okay, that's new. Okay, all that does is says I can foul a quizzer that's at the table, or I can foul a coach or an inactive quizzer. Okay, that's new. I like it. I think that's a good rule, keeping in mind why we're doing what we're doing. All right.
Over here. Brother Brian.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
So are we fouling audience members and...
Well, no question. Like, when they have family members and they're not supposed to talk.
Or they make a...
If as a quizmaster I know that you're with this team, I now call a team foul.
Okay.
You
there's
as
nothing in
okay,
here that
so
says
like you're an audience member in this scenario, and you say something in the middle of a match because you're an audience member, you're not supposed to talk. I'm going to look to the coach and say, Mark, you understand I have to call a team foul on your team here. Now, what I would do as a coach is I would encourage my team, my parents, my grandparents, whoever, I need you to do me a favor here. Let me coach, and you kind of take it easy. Or if you really need to, you can go. I've had babies in rooms before. God bless them. I love babies. I got 2 grandbabies, 4 babies of my own. But when I was coaching my King's Kids team in 2000, my 4-year-old, my youngest son, was part of the team. And I let him answer one question at Nationals as a 4-year-old, just so he could get one right. It was a reread. And he got it right. But then later in the day, when things were getting a little tense, he started making some noise. And I said, Grandma, could you take him out? Please, get him out of here now. And Grandma took him out. Okay. So valid question. I would call a foul on the team. Because I can't call a foul on that person.
Right.
But I can call a foul on the team. Now, if I don't know what team you're on, and you're in the room, now this one I'll be hard-nosed on. I'm sorry. Could I ask you to step out of the room until the match is over? I would do that. And as the quizmaster, you're in charge of the room. You can do that. That's what I would do. If I don't know which team you're on, or you're a visitor, and somehow you're getting engaged in this, sorry, I'm going to ask you. I would do that. So, good. This is good. This is perfect. All right, let's move on. Conclusion of the match. This is another one that has been true all along, but if you look at number 2 there, no corrective procedures are allowed on any issue after the match has been declared closed. Points of order, coaches' appeals. Once I say the match is now officially closed. Now, as a quizmaster, at the end of the 20th question, I would then say, okay, coaches, that's the end of the 20th question. Do either of you have a coach's appeal or a point of order before I close the match? No, the match is officially closed. At that point, there are no corrective procedures at all for any reason at any time. With one exception, rule number 3. The official score will be announced by the scorekeeper or quizmaster. Top 2 scorers will be announced, followed by each quizzer who scored in the match, concluding with the total scores of both teams. Teams should check for errors and notify the officials or any are found. If a head coach fails to challenge the score during this time, they cannot do so later. So here's what happens somewhat frequently. At the end of the match, scores are announced, and the coach says, well, wait a minute. Timmy had 20 and Billy only had 5. You've got it the other way around. You can adjust scores at that point. But if you don't do it then, they aren't going to do it later, even if you're right. The reason for that is if you've never been on that end where they're keeping the scores and the totals, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. And to go back and change that stuff takes a lot of time. If you don't do it then, it's not going to happen. Sorry. But that cost my kid a chance to be recognized at Nationals. They would have been in the top 15. Boy, I wish you'd have taken care of that, because that sure would have been neat for your kid to be up on that stage. But you know what? Tough cookies. That one is just practical as a person that's been a coordinator at large events. This is your cutoff. All right. Another one I want to point out on page 9, number 6 in the overtime session. Actually, 6 and 7. Again, this has always been true. We want to highlight it. Any remaining coaches' appeals may be used during the overtime period, but no additional coaches' appeals will be awarded for the overtime. You get 2 coaches' appeals in a match. If the match goes in overtime, you get 2. And if you used one of them in the regulation, you get 1 in overtime. And if you used both of them in regulation, you get none of them in overtime. However, number 7, it's different for timeouts. Any remaining timeouts may be used during the overtime. Each team will be granted 1 additional timeout for overtime. So you start the match with 3. If you don't use any timeouts, when you get to overtime, you could use 4 timeouts in the overtime period. Pretty simple.
I got a question.
Go right ahead.
On, conclusion of the match. In
Okay.
number 3, it said the top 2 scorers will be announced, followed by each quizzer who scored in the match.
Mm-hmm.
Are we
That's true.
Are we announcing everybody who got a score.
Here's the rationale to help you understand.
Good.
The rationale in doing that is to make sure that all the individual scores are correct. Because a kid may be in the top 10, but they might not be in the top 2 in this one particular match, and we want to make sure we have that child's score correct as well. So the point here is you as a coach verify the scores for every single one of your quizzers.
So that's not necessarily read out loud, but they have to verify the scores.
No.
It's saying that they want us to read it out loud now.
But what's the point? I mean, it's too late.
No. Because if the scores are wrong, the rules here are saying if the head coach fails to challenge the score during this time, when the individual scores are being announced, oh, wait a minute, Timmy and Billy, Timmy had 20, but you got Billy credit for 20. We're going to fix that. Okay, so.
The thing with the easy scoring, though, is they have to verify before they can actually read any of that information out. So that's gonna
on the tablet.
Oh my word, that's gonna.
But not everybody uses electronic scoring all the time.
But our quiz, like the officials are gonna use the easy score stuff, so they can't be verified.
But they don't use easy score in every district at every meet. See, you do in Florida. Remember, these rules are written from a national perspective. Not everybody uses easy. Right.
No, you can read out. You can see the scores before you verify.
Yeah. So in Florida, yeah, that's what you're saying. In Florida, you're using the Easy Score program all the time.
Right.
In North Carolina, I'm pushing for them to use it all the time, but they haven't got there yet.
So when we use paper only, though, we did the same thing. We went up to the scorekeeper and compared their scores with ours, individuals as well as teams, so that we caught those items.
But not everybody catches them at that point all the time. And the point here is there's an avenue. If you hear a score, because sometimes the quizmaster will read it wrong. Billy got 20. No, he didn't. He only got 5. Oh, well, I'm sorry. You're right. It's right in front of me. I just read it wrong. The point is we want every score for each quizzer to be verified. That's the point. Catch the vision here.
It used to be down here that they would read the scores out, and then if there was a disagreement, then
Coaches
you
would go up with the scorekeeper, and then we'd all look at.
And now most like for myself, I always tell the coaches, hey, come on up here, check the scores, we'll announce it. But the avenue is here so that we make sure we get every kid right. Because like for me, if I bring an extra kid to nationals, and I tell that kid, you are going to get at least one question correct this weekend. And they don't get it right, and I know that he got that 10-point question. By George, they're going to tell he got that 10. I want to make sure he gets, that may be the only 10, but he got it. And I want to make sure he gets it. So that's the avenue. That's the point. We want to verify every kid's score, not just the top 2 on each team. That's the point.
And it allows them to hear their name.
Well, yeah.
It's an encouraging thing, so if you can do it, just make the extra few seconds to do it.
All right. We need to finish up a little quick. I know we're going a little bit, but we do have a couple more here. Page 10, right in the middle of the page where it says Quizmaster and Judges. This has not been written in the rules before, and I'm just going to let it stand as it says it. Excuse me. The Quizmaster and Judges should have their own JBQ guidelines and be familiar with them. It is recommended that they should also read through all the JBQ guidelines regularly. That's what it says in the guidelines. I'll let that stand as it be. Okay? Yes, we want the judges to be familiar with the rules. You're not going to memorize the rules. I've been on the committees to redo the rules numerous times. I had a little bit of hand in this one, not as much as I normally have. I don't memorize them all, but I know where to find them. And I know where to look to find them. Okay? The other thing I want to point out on this page, one of the keys to good quiz mastering, and we're going to get that in the next session when we start that, the quizmaster should read loudly, clearly, and without pausing for punctuation, being consistent in their reading style. The number one thing for quizmasters, be consistent. Be consistent in the way you read. Be consistent in the way you judge. Be consistent in the way you do everything. Be consistent in the way you call fouls. If you're going to call a warning on quizzer red 1 in the first match of the day, be willing to call for a warning on the quizzer at green 1 at the end of the day. Okay? Be consistent. Okay, here we go. Page 11. 9D. I want to bring this one out because this one is just so easy for it to happen. And I want to bring it out because they're actually spelling it out. It's never been spelled out. It's really one of those things that's always been assumed. An individual foul should be assessed after the response is ruled correct or incorrect. Okay? So you buzzed in early, started giving information before I recognized you. Okay, I'm going to say red 1, so restart the timer 30 seconds, and now you've got to go back and give me the answer again. Now, at the end of that, I'm going to have to call a foul on you too. But I'm not going to call the foul in the middle of what's going on. That's all that's saying. Okay? Wait, and the other one that gets me is after individual should be assessed. When a quizzer buzzes in, but this quizzer begins to respond, I'm going to say green 1, not red 1. But then at the end of the question, I have to call a foul over here. But I'm not going to call a foul in the middle of the question is active for her. I want her to be able to get it with as minimal amount of distraction as possible. Okay? So I'll call the foul on you at the end once I say it's correct or incorrect. That's just common sense if you think about it. All right. There's a lot of stuff in here about the questions and rereading of questions and all that. Most of that, as you can see, has been in existence, and it's been that way for a long time. Duties during the match. Yeah, here we go. The next one. Page 13. 2B. To be or not to be. This is timekeeper rules. This is one I'm highlighting because they're spelling it out more clearly, but it's been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. 30 seconds to respond begins after an official identifies the quizzer, not when the quizzer buzzes in. Okay? Red 1 buzzes in, and I saw it at Nationals this year. I had to talk to my timekeeper and say, hey, slow down a little bit. Wait till I recognize the quizzer, then hit the buzzer for that 30 seconds. Okay? You get 30 seconds from the time I say red 1. Now the 30 seconds starts. What my timekeeper was doing is I'd read the question, where did the... Red 1. So that takes away 2 seconds. But that 2 seconds could be critical at the end of it could be. On a question like that one, maybe not. But if it's the Lord's Prayer, 1 Thessalonians 4, 16 and 17, that 2 seconds could make a difference. Okay? So please note how we got that there. All right. Now, we're going to move on to page 14. At the very top of the page, number 1. The response, what makes a response incorrect? The response was not accurately completed before time ends. Time ends at the initial sound of the calling of time or the initial sound made by the timer. The quizmaster and judges must disregard any word, syllable, or letter of the alphabet given after time ends. When a quizzer buzzes in, I have now recognized she gets 30 seconds to give her answer. And she's given the answer, and she's processing, because it's like, oh, I know. And you've seen the kids do it. They're processing. They're thinking. But if that buzzer goes off, and she's quoting Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's wrong. She obviously knows it, but there's a 30-second time limit. This is just a rule to keep it fair and uncomplicated. If the buzzer goes off or the timekeeper calls time, if the buzzer doesn't have a timing unit built in, it's wrong. The quizmaster and judges must disregard any word, syllable, or letter of the alphabet given after time ends. No questions, because it's pretty simple. Okay. Now we're going to move to bottom of page 14. This is, going back to Mark, what you were asking about earlier, corrective procedures. There are essentially 2 corrective procedures in a match to make sure that the guidelines are being followed properly. The first of which is called a point of order. A point of order basically is an attempt by a quizzer or a coach to prevent a rule violation. For example, the light being left on after I've counted a quizzer correct, but the light's left on. So I'm starting to read the next question. Nobody's going to be able to buzz in because the light's on. Okay? Please note, first sentence, any member of a team may state point of order, wait to be recognized by the quizmaster, and state what the point of order is. Any member of the team. That includes active quizzers, the ones at the table, the coaches, head coach and or assistant coaches, and, just for fun, the inactive quizzers that are sitting, the substitutes, they can call for a point of order. Now, please note, here we go, the last sentence there. A quizzer may call a point of order only examples 1 and 2, which are found on the next page, page 15. During the point of order, the coach or quizzer should briefly state the guideline violation. Okay? Now, if you notice, the head coach or assistant coaches has the right to call point of order in any of the examples listed below. So now if you turn to page 15, there are 7 different reasons why a coach or quizzer can call for a point of order. Okay? The first 2, the equipment needs to be reset, or the quizmaster calls the number of the next question without rereading an interrupted question. Quizzers can call for point of order in that situation, those 2. Now, as a coach, here's what I'm going to tell my kids. If you are an inactive quizzer, you're sitting on the bench, I don't care what you think you see. If nobody else sees it, I don't want you to be the one to bring it up. That's my coaching philosophy. But if you are sitting at the table and you know that that was an interrupted question and it wasn't reread, I want you to call the point of order. Don't make me do it. I will. I'm not shy. I'll call point of order at any time. But I will tell my kids, those are the only 2 things you need to worry about. If I call a point of order for anything else, you just go with the flow. I'll take care. I know the rules. I'll do what I'm supposed to do. But if you know that the light's not, and I might not be able to see the light. Where you're sitting and the light's right here, I might not be able to see it. But you can. Call that point of order. So I teach my kids. I literally take time during practice and I leave the light on purpose, and I want to see if little Susie over here is going to call point of order. And she'll do something like, the light's on. What do you call that? I don't know. Point of order. Oh, say it now. Point of order. Okay, what do you do? Point of order. So then I'll stop again, turn the light on. Okay, Susie, tell me what it is. Point of order. You got it. I'm training my kids. Okay. Now, the other 5, only the coach or the assistant coaches can call if a quizzer remains illegally in the match. What that means is that kid's already got 6 right or 3 wrong, or 3 fouls. I'm keeping score. A question or point value is misread. Question number 3 for 20 points. Where did the universe come from? Point of order. That's a 10-point question. Oh, yeah, okay. Toss the question out, reread a substitute question for both teams. That's a point of order. Number 5. A responding quizzer who has not given any incorrect information is ruled incorrect before the 30-second time ends. Everybody get that one? Kid gets 30 seconds to give their answer. If they don't say anything incorrect, it's only incomplete, they can't count that child incorrect. And if they do, point of order.
So does the point of order come immediately, or does it come after it's reread for the other team?
If the quizmaster counts my kid wrong, but the 30-second buzzer hasn't gone off, I'm calling that because it's a point of order. It's not an appeal.
Okay.
It's a point of order. I'm going to call that immediately.
Okay.
I'm going to call that immediately. Everybody understand what's happening there in that scenario? Okay. The question is asked. And my child's answering. They have said nothing wrong, but it's incomplete. And I'm sitting here going, come on, there's a little more. And I'm thinking, I'm not saying out loud. But then the quizmaster says, I'm sorry, that's incorrect for -10.
Okay.
They
Now you got
give them the full time.
You got to give them the full time. You got to give them the full 30 seconds. If you have, as a quiz master, if you have any doubt, always wait for the timer to go off. Then count them. Now, if it's obviously correct, sure, go ahead, correct. 10, 20, 30 points. If they say something incorrect and they took this phrase out, here's something that they've removed from the rule book. At least I can't find it. I haven't seen it yet. There used to be something in there that said the quizmaster should not stop a quizzer, even if they've given incorrect information, if they're still talking. So they're quoting, they buzzed in early on a 30-point question, according to Romans, and they picked Romans chapter 8, it was really chapter 10, and they're quoting Romans 8, 38, and 39. We're going to all sit here and listen to them. God bless them. I'm glad you're quoting Scripture, but we all have to sit here and wait for you. They took that out. If it's incorrect, it's incorrect. Okay, off my hobby horse. Number 6, an 11th 10-point, 8th 20-point, or 4th 30-point question is called during any match. This point of order may be made immediately upon calling the point value. For example, the quizmaster reads question number 16 for 30 points. The point of order should be made before the quizmaster starts to read the actual question. Okay, that's similar to what you were asking over here before. If it is not, it must then be made before the succeeding question is called. If you don't get that point of order out in time, like question 16 for, what do they say it was for? 30 points. And the quizmaster reads it, red one gets it, or red one, I've been going reading in red. Red one gets it correct for 30 points. As the coach, I'm going to say, point of order, that was the 4th 30-point question in the match. Oh, wow. Computer generated isn't supposed to do that, which the computer generated usually doesn't. Okay, that's really rare. Well, now I'm going to have to throw that question out and reread a new question 16 for the correct point value, whatever it should have been, for both teams. Everybody good? That's not really too confusing, I don't think. Okay, number 7 is kind of the all-encompassing. Any guideline violation occurs other than the section answering guidelines. Requesting a point of order to adjudicate an interrupted question or answer is a team foul, which we talked about just a few moments ago. A point of order is not to get the judges to reconsider the correctness of an answer. A point of order is to point out a potential rule violation that you can change. Good? Okay. Coach's appeals. And I realize I've got 3 minutes. This is the big change, is the nomenclature. Now, my experience at JBQ, I started in June of 1985. I have been continuously doing Junior Bible Quiz, therefore, for 38 years. We have called it appeals. We have called it contesting. There was a time when we put all points of order into one big, huge lump, and everything was a point of order. We've had judges' rulings. Now we're going back to calling them coaches' appeals. The change is nomenclature. The essence of what's happening has not changed a bit. You as a coach feel like, hey, my kid was right. They should have been counted correct. You have a vehicle to state why you think your child should have been ruled correct. Or the opposite's true. Hey, you counted that kid correct. That was a quotation, and the kid butchered 3 words. They repeated words all through it. And as a coach, my opinion, that's the rules. If it's a question like that, I'm going to call for a judge's appeal or coach's appeal. I'm going to call for and by the way, coach, judges, quizmasters, whoever you are, people are going to stumble over that at the beginning of the year. Give them grace, but train them. Do you mean coach's appeal? Yeah, go ahead. Go with your coach's appeal. Okay. This is the vehicle for you to stand up for your team and say, hey, I don't think that should have been counted right, or I don't think that should have been counted wrong. The essence of it has stayed the same. Now, we are not training the kids to be lawyers. Okay? If any of you are a lawyer, God bless you. God loves you. Okay? You make it brief. It is listed here, and I want to make sure I see this because I need to see it. Okay, the next page. There it is. Just 2A, I just want you to see this. 2A on page 16. The team requesting the appeal has 30 seconds to prepare and present their appeal. When I say we don't want lawyers, at one time the rules actually stated 2 minutes. And it turned into a legal wrangling match. For 2 minutes, And it really got cumbersome, bulky, and quite frankly, it was boring. The kids were bored. Even if they thought they were right, it got boring to the kids. We cut it down to 30 seconds. Make your request. Here's the rule. And by the way, let me help you. How many of you are coaches? How many of you are coaches? How many of you are quizmasters? Okay, so there's some of these. Okay? If you want to make it simple for the quizmaster, if you're a coach, the basis for any good coach's appeal is going to be found on pages 13 and 14. If you can't find the rule on page 13 or 14 for a coach's appeal, you probably don't have a coach's appeal. Look back. I literally want you to look back here. The answering guidelines. What makes a response correct? What makes a response incorrect? If you can't find the rules violation that you're basing your request for coach's appeal in those 2 pages, you probably don't have a valid coach's appeal. Okay? Now, quizmasters, you hear the coach, and they cite a rule. Open the rule book you have in front of you, because we always give rule books to the quizmasters in your packet. Open it up and read it, and look for yourself. Does that really cover the situation that's in this question? Okay?
Is it number 1 new too?
Say that again?
On 16, is it number 1 new?
I jumped ahead. I'm going to come back. No, see, again, you're thinking ahead. I love it. Feel free to do that, but I am coming to that, because that is circled on my thing here. Okay? Number 3, the middle of page 15, coach's appeals. A coach's appeal is permitted only to change the decision of the quizmaster and or judges concerning the correctness of a response. That's the only sole reason for a coach's appeal. You either think your kid was right and the quizmaster counted him wrong, or you think the kid on the other team was wrong and the quizmaster counted him correct. And please note, it's very clear in here, it can be the independent decision of a quizmaster, or it can even, if as a quizmaster I ask my judges for a judge's vote, you can appeal either way. You can call for an appeal on either one of those. Any questions on that?
I got a question.
Go for it.
Only because I've done this.
Sure.
I had a kid one of my kids, that got a question marked correct. That was, in my opinion, very obviously incorrect.
Okay.
And I appealed. The other coach was brand new, had no clue.
Sure.
It's like, this is the reason why this question's wrong. And then I was told afterwards, I was not supposed to do that because this was against my team. But it's like, we're teaching our kids, right?
Could you show me a rule that says you can't do that?
No. But I was told I was not supposed to do that against my own team.
Based on what rule? Okay. You raise a bigger question here. What are we teaching our kids? Not just this, but the attitude and the heart. And you're telling your kids, look, I know that was wrong, and I want to fight for what's right, even though it hurts me. How many of you have ever had to make a decision in your life that hurts you in the short term, but you did the right thing? I went to my boss once, about 35 years ago, and admitted that I had stolen a spoon. I worked for UPS, and a spoon fell out of the box, and I kept it and put it in my pocket, and God convicted me hard, and I had to go back to my boss, admit that I took it, and I got fired. But I got freedom. Because I walk with integrity knowing I did the right thing. Now, long story, God used that incident to create a whole new pathway for my life that probably would have been missed, or I would have had to learn a harder lesson later down the line to get the same lesson. But that's what you're displaying. And you're showing your kids integrity is better than winning. That's what you did there. Personally, I would applaud it. Okay? I would applaud it. And what happens frequently as a quizmaster, I'm going to make a decision that I think it's right, but I could see where somebody thinks it's wrong. And I'll ask my judges to vote. And if they both disagree with me, I will change my decision. But then the coach is going to call for a judge's ruling. And you know what? Now it's like, okay, now I can talk with them. And sometimes we change things. I like what you're thinking there. Because you're displaying to your kids, you're keeping the primary goal in focus. That's really what we're all about. There's nothing in the rule that says you can't do that.
Okay.
Now, I would caution you one thing, just a caution, and this has to be weighed on a case-by-case basis. Are you 100% certain that that child is wrong? And is it going to help that child learn how to do something better? You have to wrestle with that on a case-by-case basis. Okay? Because I tell my kids all the time, the closer you are to word perfect, the more you take it out of the judge's hands. Even on a non-quotation.
I agree.
We do. But like in this instance, or in what we see, if we don't correct them, then they'll say, but I said it last time and I got it correct. So
First of all, the kids can't say that.
Well, they
Well,
say
no,
it to us.
after.
Yeah, they say that.
You know,
And,
like when they get it wrong the next time.
and the point is, the closer you get it to word perfect, the more you take. One judge might count you correct, another judge might count you wrong.
And we understand that.
And
yeah.
we're trying to get you there, okay?